13th, 2026 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point, we will take a moment to take roll of the council members by position number. Please say here when the clerk calls your name.
Thank you. Councilmember Ungulari.
Here.
Mayor Thompson. Deputy Mayor Aldrich.
Here.
Councilmember Curd.
Here.
Councilmember Miles. Here. Councilmember Dodd. Councilmember Alcabra.
Here.
All present with the exception of Mayor Thompson and Councilmember Dodd, who are both absent and excused.
Thank you, Clerk. Are there any changes to tonight's meeting agenda? Seeing none. The city has accepted public comment in writing as well as accepted sign up for those.
Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead. Public engagement opportunities.
Engagement, yep.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, public engagement opportunities on January 15th, this Thursday. There is an open house to discuss the Wayne Open Space. Join the City of Bothell to learn about the Wayne Open Space Action Plan, hear from city representatives, get an introduction to the project, ask questions, and chat with the project team for insight into the 89-acre site. Also, help map Bothell's EV future. Help identify where new public chargers are needed most. As part of Bothell's Climate Action Plan, we're expanding our public electric vehicle charging network. This helps us prioritize future locations as we pursue grant funding for new installations. Learn more and share your ideas at engagebothell.com. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. Join the City of Bothell and Whale Scout to celebrate the life and work of Dr. King by helping make our community a better place. Restore vital salmon habitat, connect with your community, and hear from guest speakers. All ages welcome. Monday, January 19th from 1 to 4 p.m. at former Wayne Golf Course. Space is limited, so sign up at bothellwa.gov/MLK Day. All right, now we can accept public comment. The city has accepted public comment in writing, as well as accepted sign up for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. Clerk, are there any visitor comment sign-ups?
Thank you. We do not have anybody signed up to speak this evening. However, if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to do so, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Congratulations to the new council members and to your promotion, Deputy Mayor Aldrich. I want to thank the village for standing here with me. They're the neighbors who believes the starter home should not just be a slogan. Standing with me are residents who received some of the computers that I gave to 1% of the entire city's population. All of us here are invested in the community. I recently spoke with Senator Slatter and Representative Kloba when I explained that Bothell was blocking a textbook infill project on a high-density lot. They both asked the same question. Isn't that something Mason can help with? It's a fair question, especially because not that long ago, my specific lot was used as a case study during the ADU code amendments to show exactly what success should look like in Bothell. Yet here we are. On paper, middle housing is permitted, but in practice, you have made it infeasible. Between frontage improvements that force homeowners to do the job of public works and a rigid code interpretation that ignores state law, you have effectively kept the middle housing missing. Instead, we get downtown apartments or townhouse complexes like the Seattle Times, Country Village, and Lily Kirk. We get the big stuff, but we get blocked on the small stuff. Staff tells me they're simply following the code enforced by Commerce. I believe it's inertia. The code was correct or was not correct based on the math. The law for HB 1110 states that you can cap ADUs only if you allow the floor, which is 2 units. If higher densities applies, you cannot cap ADUs. My lot is 8 units, far beyond the 2-unit minimum. Because higher densities apply, the safe harbor cap does not exist. That leaves only HB 1337's must allow 2 ADUs per lot. I am fighting this battle not just for my lot, but for infill for all of Washington. Tonight, you can fix this. Direct staff to recognize that on high-density lots, HB 1337 controls. In the immortal words of my legendary Canadian brethren Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Make that choice to bring back starter homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Aldrich and council members. My name is Christina Hawley, and I'm a Bothell resident and parent. I'm here tonight with my 8-year-old son to speak in support of gentle infill and the creation of more truly affordable single-family housing in Bothell. Justin has brought forward a concrete, thoughtful plan to do exactly that: small-scale, single-family homes that fit within existing neighborhoods and meet real community needs. What's been discouraging is watching that kind of solution get trapped in layers of bureaucratic circularity, even though it aligns with what so many families here actually need. For families like mine, especially those that include neurodivergence or disability, single-family housing isn't a luxury. It's often a necessity. Rentals typically can't be structurally modified to meet accessibility or sensory needs. And when disabilities are involved, it's not always possible or reasonable to comply with the kinds of rules that come with shared walls. Strict quiet hours, noise complaints, behavioral expectations that don't account for neurodivergent kids or adults, and so on. We love Bothell. We love the schools, the community, and the people here. But we are likely facing the reality of having to move far outside the area soon, not because we want to, but because we need to downsize and there are no affordable single-family options available to us here. Gentle infill matters because it allows families to stay rooted. It supports aging in place, disability access, multi-generational living, and economic diversity without radically changing neighborhood character. It's about adding options, not density for density's sake. I want to be clear, when families like mine are priced out or structurally excluded, Bothell doesn't just lose residents. It loses caregivers, volunteers, PTA members, neighbors, and community builders. On one other topic, I also want to add one more fervent hope that I have. I hope that Bothell and all Seattle area suburbs are making proactive plans to protect residents, particularly immigrant families, in the event that federal enforcement activity expands or shifts regionally. This is a moment to prepare thoughtfully so our community isn't caught off guard if and when our neighbors are put at risk. Thank you for your time, for your service, and for considering policies that allow families like mine to remain part of the community we love.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
So I press this?
No, it's good.
Okay. So I didn't jot down my thoughts, so it's going to be a little scrambled.
Excuse me, would you please state your
sure.
name for the record? Thank
Sure.
you.
Lori Dunham. I live here in Bothell. So I'm a real estate agent. Been a real estate agent for a long time, and I looked at his plan, and I was impressed. The only thing I probably would do is I would probably make that 2,400 square foot home two smaller 1,200 square foot homes. That's the, yeah. And that kind of infill would really take the pressure off the neighborhood, I feel, because bigger things like the Country Village or the Lily Kirk can, still happen on bigger lots. Lily Kirk, I think it's very large. I don't quite understand it, but it might be just fine. Right? But the lots like his, I would really like to see that kind of thing be able to go forward. And I would like also to see smaller developments like that perhaps pay a smaller fee into the city that the city could use to put into a savings account to later do the bike lane when they've saved up enough money to do it in a bigger way, instead of what I oftentimes see, bike lanes or sidewalks that go nowhere or that get torn up when the next development happens. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. My name is Marcia Clark. I'll be honest, I usually sympathize with those that complain about new development. I'm tired of seeing our neighborhoods turned into endless seas of drab corporate townhomes. We were promised that rezoning would bring flexible solutions and housing diversity to our communities. Instead, we get massive complexes and dangerous staircases and shared walls. We feel deceived. But what Justin is proposing is exactly what we thought we were going to get. It's small, it fits the neighborhood, it's a home, not a complex, a real ownership opportunity in a great location, and not just another rental. To see the city block look like this with endless red tape, or expect a homeowner to build a public bike lane for a tiny little project, really feels morally wrong. It proves that the codes written are for big developers and not for us, the citizens. If you actually want the village to support housing, you need to support small projects as well. Please stop forcing us into a sea of gray and let a neighborhood build a starter home.
Thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Alders and council members. Thank you for the work you do on behalf of Bothell and for showing up for this community and its future. My name is Tara Droney. I'm a longtime Bothell resident, a parent, and someone who loves this city and wants it to remain a place where families, seniors, and the next generation can afford to live. And I believe deeply that a city should make room for people who call it home. And that's why I'm here tonight, to raise a concern about how our housing process is actually functioning, and about a growing gap between Bothell's stated housing values and what residents are experiencing on the ground. We hear sincerely and often that Bothell wants more housing, more middle housing, more affordability. We see the presentations, we attend the forums, and we receive mailers often with large developments that are moving forward. We also hear very real concerns from our residents about traffic and parking concerns as the growth happens. And to your credit, when neighbors raise those concerns, I've seen council respond publicly and visibly. But when a local homeowner tries to do something much smaller and gentler, like adding a couple modest homes on a large lot, in a way that fits the neighborhood and state law, the experience looks very different. Instead of clarity, it becomes silence, procedural loops, and paywalls just to get a decision. In this case, a homeowner paid for a pre-application, redesigned his project to remove a bike lane trigger, and got confirmation from Public Works, only to be told the city will not issue a written appealable decision unless he pays thousands more for a director's interpretation, even though the pre-app process includes multiple city reviews and cycles. Without a written decision, there's no meaningful way for a resident to challenge a city's interpretation of state law. And that's a due process problem, and it directly affects who gets to build housing in this city. Large developers can afford procedural paywalls. Homeowners cannot. So the system quietly decides who gets to build housing in Bothell, not based on what fits the neighborhood or what the state law allows, but on who can afford a maze of fees and delays. The city has leaned on the guidance from the Department of Commerce, but Commerce does not decide projects. Only the city does. And when there's a real gap in how state housing law applies, that is exactly when elected leadership is supposed to step in. Choosing not to intervene in a broken process is still a choice. and calling an underbuilt lot non-conforming and using that to block new housing creates a catch-22 that freezes exactly the places where homes should be added most. And that isn't about one property, it's about whether state housing law actually works for the
Thank you.
people
Your time is up.
who lives there. I want my kids to be able to live in a city that grew up, that they grew up in, and that requires community scale housing and a process that is
Thank
fair,
you. Your time is
transparent,
up.
Thank you,
and
Mrs. Droney.
accessible to the people
Time is
who are
up.
already calling Bothell home. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? I do have one person in the virtual audience who's raised their hand. I'm going to promote them to a panelist now. Go ahead, sir, and state your name for the record.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Jeff Paremba, and I'm here to support a resident who's trying to build modest zoning compliant infill housing, the kind of middle housing that many folks in our community have indicated is needed and wanted. And what concerns me here is not just this individual case, but the pattern it reflects. A little over a year ago, residents were told that some zoning decisions were the result of long community processes, while consequential changes were made very late, with very little opportunity for meaningful input from the residents affected. And in this case, as in others, the city appears to have decided what outcome it wants, who it wants to listen to, and then use process and interpretation to push residents into compliance. I believe the proposal before you is not extreme. It's proportional, incremental, fits both the definition and intent of middle housing, and yet it's being blocked, while the applicant is effectively steered towards a much larger, more disruptive project. When modest neighborhood-scale infill is treated as a problem, and the only viable path left is the biggest possible build, that's not a neutral policy. It's outcome-driven enforcement. Add to that six-figure infrastructure requirements and fees just to get a clear answer, and the message to regular residents is unmistakable. Your preferences don't matter, and your participation is a box-checking exercise. I believe that this community and the city want more middle housing, which is great. But the process matters and trust matters, and treating current residents as obstacles rather than stakeholders is how that trust is lost. So I'm asking the council to really ensure that these zoning standards and state law are followed, and to make it clear that this modest, lawful infill is something that the city actually supports, and not something that it quietly discourages. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Shauna Beaufort. Shauna, can you hear me? Shauna, you're muted. Okay, is there anyone else here that wishes to speak in the audience? Go ahead and step to the podium, and we'll see if we can get Shauna back on in a moment.
I might be putting the kids to bed. It's Eastern time zone.
Good evening. My name is Jensina Megard, and I live in the Canyon Park area and have since the early 1990s. I'm standing here tonight wearing this shirt because for years we've been told a story that neighbors are afraid of density, that we want to pull up the ladder behind us. That story is false. I look at Justin's project and I don't see a threat. I see a home for a young family. I see a place for a grandmother. I see the kind of gentle, invisible density that keeps our schools full and our local businesses alive, like the ones we lost at Country Village. We aren't asking for a skyscraper. We are asking you to let a neighbor build a home on a lot that is already zoned for 8 of them. To draw a line in the sand and get a small starter home seems counter to the very goal of housing diversity. If the state says yes, the neighbors say yes. Why is the city saying no? Please listen to the village standing behind me. We want these starter homes. Let him build. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Micah Campbell. I'm going to panel him in. And for the record, we've lost Shauna.
The kids started screaming.
Okay. Micah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Very good. Well, good evening, council members. Tonight I just would like to echo what I've heard from many other people speaking. Recently, my parents worked on a simple addition to move my 95-year-old grandmother in with us. This addition was only about around 120 square feet, but as the city of Bothell has been looking to create a more vibrant community with more diverse housing, and as the people speaking beforehand have been mentioning, even through this simple process which my parents were going through, they were very much surprised at how difficult it was for them to be adding on something that would be creating a multi-generational housing, something that would be for multi-generational housing. And to be quite honest, it seemed that Bothell was making it more difficult to do something that would actually be similar to what you folks have been encouraging. So I'd just like to thank all the people who have spoken tonight about these housing developments. I agree with them, and I would really appreciate council members if you would take these thoughts into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Shauna back. So Shauna, if you can hear me, go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My apologies. Kids started screaming right as I was ready to speak. So my name is Shauna Buffard. I'm, along with Justin, the co-owner of the property that we've been speaking about. And I want to be clear about what's happening here. It's not a policy debate. We agree with the housing. You know, the city would love to have housing, but it seems like there's a matter of legal hierarchy here. This state law should preempt the city code, and the city seems to be operating under the conception that HB 1110 is a law that's designed to increase housing. They're using it to restrict it. HB 1110 sets a floor for low density zones. It does not and cannot grant the city permission to cap density in our RM2 zone, which actually allows for 8 units. By enforcing this cap, it seems Bothell is fighting to do less than the bare minimum required by state. I don't really expect this type of resistance from Bothell. You know, I've gone to the meetings, I've gone to the tours that we did with Middle Housing. We're supposed to be trying to do better than that. We're supposed to be paving waves for housing. So let's fix it. Long term, we need to fix the code, but let's not wait for that. Please act. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aldrich. That's all I have for now. Don't have anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak, so.
Okay, thank you, Clerk. I would like to now call on City Manager Stannard to give us the City Manager's report and introduce any staff briefings that you have.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'm going to pull up some slides really quick, and then I do intend to, I'm going to ad hoc a quick update too for those who joined us tonight. So I'll bring up my presentation though for other topics. Maybe. It's hard to talk and act at the same time. All right. Better. All right. Good evening, Deputy Mayor. And thank you to those who joined and have an interest in housing. As I often get to tell people of Bothell City Council has made it clear of why my joke will be sometimes of your top 10 priorities, the top 3 are housing. So certainly the Bothell City Council has demonstrated leadership and championship of housing. And including in that is taking early actions before, in addition to what state law requires. I just want to reassure anyone who's concerned, the city first and foremost does in fact follow state law. And if there's ever any clarification that's needed, we seek that clarification and we'll continue to do so. I think there can be situations where there's many changes that happen at once. And I know our council was eager to adopt codes that would support housing types of all kinds. And the caveat, as some of those were being adopted, is we may find out that there's unintended consequences and there may be corrections that need to be made. We certainly will also always look to do that with an overarching goal in mind and not necessarily respond to changing code project to project. With that, what I want to reassure folks too is that we've made a commitment to bringing the city council updates every 6 months on development activities. And that'll show a snapshot of what are we seeing. So the code has been put in place, and it's helpful to be able to see what's the response to that code. And so staff was here first meeting in September, providing a 6-month snapshot. And we committed at that time to sometime in the February-March timeframe to bring one back. We are currently scheduled for February 3rd, sooner. We've moved that forward as a study session to show council what has been the response to the code that's in place. And that'll give you a picture of then, are the results matching what the intent was? And if not, then we can look at making adjustments. So I do want to reassure people of this isn't the code was adopted and now there's nothing we can do. So staff's job is to, in fact, respond to the codes in place and also comply with state law. And we do that as we can, best by best, and we'll document when there might be things that are in conflict. With that, I just want to assure the council, as your staff person, we will reach back out to the applicant developer in this case to give an update on what's going on. I had a conversation with him in the hallway. I think there's some updates as we've been reaching out to the Department of Commerce and also continuing to review and make sure that there's as much clarity as possible. But again, looking forward to February 3rd and the opportunity to share what are we seeing of the different projects that are in the pipeline to move forward and see again if there's any changes that would need to be made. Overall, though, too, what I did want to point back to is, again, the big why behind all of this is that as we also look at what is in our comprehensive plan and what's required of Bothell and what the conditions that the Bothell City Council will ultimately be held responsible for as the elected representatives of this community, is that by 2044, what we know is that there will be we're responsible for creating the conditions for over 12,000 new units of housing to be produced by 2044. And of those, over 5,000 in both counties total need to be at a very to moderate affordable rate. So overall, we are looking at those targets and we will be held accountable to those metrics. And so then the goal is to align with the state law, which also requires that, as well as our local code to produce the conditions that will happen. Again, these are not units that the city will build, but that the city code will support and our zoning will support. So that's the puzzle. And if it's not in balance, well, certainly it's helpful having that 6-month snapshot to be able to make adjustments, and we commit to doing so. With the theme of growth in mind, though, I do have 2 things that are of regional interest that I wanted to bring to the City Council. One of them relating to one of the committees that you'll decide later, just to give you a heads up. And then another that, again, is related to some of the different requirements for growth that the city is held responsible for. So what a committee that isn't on your list, because that's not where representation comes from, but there is a group. It's the Puget Sound Regional Council, or PSRC, often referred to, that has a responsibility of looking at overall growth in the Puget Sound region. There are a number of representatives that make up that board from different agencies. Bothell has had representation on that board. We do not currently, but that's kind of a ebb and flow cycle. Within that PSRC structure is a growth management policy board, and they have a meeting that's coming up this Thursday that I wanted to make sure council was aware of. That board, this subgroup, is made up of representatives from member jurisdictions. Again, Bothell doesn't currently have a representative, and then also regional businesses, labor leaders, civic leaders, and environmental groups, holistically looking at what are the growth needs for this region and how do we support that in a responsible way that doesn't encourage sprawling out from city centers. The board, this board that meets on Thursday advises the executive board on key growth management issues. Their agenda this week includes an item to review designations of currently identified regional centers for redesignation. By way of background, Bothell's Canyon Park area, we heard from a resident tonight, is currently designated as an urban growth center and was certified as such in 2022. Up on the slide is a highlighted area of what falls within that center. Canyon Park is being recommended at this time. There's a re-review to see are responsible policies taking place and is there progress. And it's something that I know the council is interested in. And in fact, you have initiated a review and update to the Canyon Park sub-area plan, which was also adopted around that time. That'll be coming back to the council at the end of this year. But the good news that I did want to share is that for that, the management board that's meeting is recommending that sub-area does keep this growth designation. The so what of that, so what does that do, is that these are become strategic locations in the region that provide sustainable growth, focusing development where it's most efficient and beneficial for the Puget Sound region, rather than spreading it out too thinly across the landscape of where there just happens to be available land. So there's factors that look at jobs creation and transportation options and what the region can support. And those areas are then identified. And again, this is one that does. So we're looking forward to that, and then also looking forward to the conversations with council and the planning commission later this year about are there any, again, on the theme of course corrections. This sub-area was identified a number of years ago. We've heard some interest in that area of having more flexibility, additional housing, as well as the commercial support, which we also are accountable to providing for. So more to come on that, but the good news is that we won't be moving backwards. It looks as though the center designation will continue, and we'll know for sure no later than March, and we'll update council if any surprises come up. The second update does relate to a committee that eventually someone on the council will be representing on and may hear about. And that relates to Snohomish County tomorrow. And as council will recall, on July 15th, 2025, at your meeting, the city council was presented an update from Snohomish County about the county's request for an expanded Bothell Municipal Urban Growth Area, or MUGA, to accommodate approximately 800 additional units of housing. This is it's an area shaded on the map on the screen in salmon. You'll see there's an orientation in the upper left-hand corner of that map of the city boundaries, and then highlighted by purple, pink around it, which has the entire urban growth area, municipal urban growth area. So the salmon-colored piece of property, for those who weren't following, was proposed by the county to then become part of that dotted line area. The feedback that came from city council by way of a subcommittee consisting of council members Dodd, Curd, and Mankey at the time was to draft a letter expressing opposition of expanding the area and instead making better use of the area that already exists. So instead of moving the boundaries out, let's focus on what we already have now. Later tonight, you'll talk about the Snohomish County tomorrow representation, but when we reviewed this last week too, I mentioned there's a number of subcommittees, including a planning advisory committee, which Bothell is represented by Community Development Director Jason Greenspan. So last week, they had a meeting to get an update on this. We've been following it very closely based on council's feedback, and also making sure that if there was an opportunity or a need for the Bothell City Council to go visit your peers at Snohomish County in public comment, that we would know where things are flowing. What I wanted to express is that Snohomish County staff has been responsive to what was expressed in the letter. They have highlighted that there was opposition from Bothell and not an interest in increasing our municipal urban growth boundary area. In the materials that were online, there was an acknowledgement of that there was another party that they were in negotiations with, and our minds can quickly catalog who might those be. During the meeting, Director Greenspan did confirm that what was referred to in the online materials was the city of Mill Creek. Snohomish County is in discussion with Mill Creek about taking on the area that's highlighted into their MUGA, which creates some complexity for Mill Creek, and that'll be something that their staff and the city council has to decide upon of, does that make sense? What I wanted to share, though, too, is that, underlying in this is much like our comprehensive plan and the housing targets that we have, Snohomish County has some as well. And part of the justification for this expansion was to accommodate an additional, again, around 800 units. I want to thank Director Greenspan for sharing voice in response of what council's direction was as well, of notifying those in attendance that we still stand as a city prepared to have a conversation of if for the Snohomish County growth needs and targets, if we need to have a conversation of how to accommodate the growth that they're responsible for within our existing MUGA, we're happy to do so. And again, that it's the opposition isn't about the increased housing targets. It's about increasing the area of which they take place and really looking at, let's make sure that we're not expanding the need for the infrastructure that doesn't exist in the different, including outside of city control, like transit. Let's make use of what already exists. So that message was delivered. Eventually, this will continue to matriculate up and go to the Snohomish County Tomorrow Board, of which a council member will be a representative on. And when that happens, we'll be happy to support whomever that lucky person is in your meeting. So with that, it's a bit of a lengthy presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Deputy Mayor, for the next item.
Thank you for that report. I'll open it up to my colleagues for council committee reports, community reports, and conversations. Okay, seeing none, I have an update from Eastside Transportation Partnership. I was able to attend the meeting that was held last Friday, and we were able to approve the federal legislative priorities document and also kind of do a recap of 2025 and a preview of 2026. So it was very much a beginning of the year type meeting, and that's what we did. Anybody else? All right, I will go to my script. Next, we will hear back to the city manager to introduce an item relating to the BMC update, child exposure to domestic violence.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And normally I would actually just turn this over to Councilmember Dodd, who is the council member interested in initiating this, but in her absence this evening, I'm happy to continue moving this forward if there's interest from the council. And again, if you'd rather hear from your colleague at the next meeting, we can certainly bring it back too. But Councilmember Dodd raised a question late in the year after reading about something that the city of Everett was doing, which was adding to their code to have a secondary chargeable crime for any domestic violence situation that took place in presence of a minor. And she was interested in what the impact would be for the city of Bothell, what would be the order of magnitude and the level of effort, and if that was something that we could draft. Per council protocol, when there are new ideas of things that would take resources and come before you, we always do check with this projected agenda for council. We're looking for 2 additional council members who would support that. I will tell you too, in the context of this one, sometimes we bring things back rapidly within a week or 2. In this case, what our intent would be is to work on it a little bit and come back probably in the March timeframe. And in speaking with our lead prosecutor, Travis Johnson, part of the reason for that too is that as he drafts the code, which is a simple enough process, he also wants to make sure to have time before it would be coming from council for adoption to train our police officers, because there are very specific things that then in police reports would need to be captured to be able to make sure that this code was enforceable. So through that process might come up with some additional tweaks to make sure that are in the code and everything. But we'd be looking at, if there's interest in this, we'd be looking at scheduling something for study session and conversation to make sure we got it right in the March timeframe, and then could bring it back for adoption within a few weeks of that. So that's what's before you tonight. And again, what we'd be looking for is if there are 2 additional council members who would like to see this developed.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I think it'll be good to at least have a conversation around this in a formal manner.
Councilmember Curd.
Yeah, I'll support it as well.
Thank you. So we have what we want and what we will, or what we're looking for. I will notify Councilmember Dodd that we'll be working on it, and again, we'll get this scheduled in March.
I appreciate that, City Manager Stannert. Are there any other items that council members wish to discuss or add to the projected agenda? Councilmember Alcabra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alders. The L's next to each other. Something I've been thinking about for a while, and the events, the tragedy, and of the unjust murder of Renee Good in Minneapolis brought me over there's a red line that got crossed, and it's like I feel like we have to at least have a conversation around what can we do as a city to protect our residents more. What can we do to prevent as much as we can? I mean, this is why I want to have a conversation around what can we do. We do have automated license plate readers, ALPRs, and cameras, and I know we have retail, which is also a private property, I understand, but they use those cameras whose data is being used to commit some things that a lot of us see that as unjust. And I would love to have a conversation around this, at least to have have a more formal conversation with the police chief and others to learn, and IT and all that, to understand what can we do as a city to help our residents feel a little bit safer. A little safer.
And if I understand correctly, City Manager, we would need 2 other folks to express interest in the council member's proposal?
That is correct.
I'm interested. I'm interested as well.
All right, thank you both. So we have the 3, and Councilmember Alcabra will follow up with you to make sure that we have it scoped for a meaningful conversation, again, that meets the objective of what you're looking for, and get that on the council schedule.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'm also going to confess one of my many first mistakes this year, so we'll come back to it. But I did miss something under the city manager report of an update for you for the board and commission recruitment schedule. The city clerk assures me she can cover it when we get to the item on committee assignments. So if you don't mind, we'll pick it up there as part of the introduction, and I apologize.
I was also wondering if can that be part of public engagement opportunities when the applications open?
Yes, it will.
Okay,
yes.
great.
Thank
Okay.
you for that clarification, but absolutely.
Right.
We'll let Laura tell you more.
Thank you.
Councilmember Miles had her microphone on though, and I jumped in, so apologies.
No, it was a mistake.
All right, so moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Councilmember Curd.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Awesome. All right, the motion to approve the consent agenda has been made by Councilmember Curd and seconded by Councilmember Miles. If anyone wishes to discuss, please indicate by turning on your light. Seeing none, go ahead, clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Onguluri.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alders.
Yes.
Councilmember Curd.
Yes.
Councilmember Miles.
Yes.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
All right. Next up, we are moving on to AB 26005. City Manager Stannert and City Clerk Laura Hathaway will present this item and then answer questions.
Yeah, and we'll get like a 2 or 3 for 1 arguably on this. So thank you again for the forgiveness. We'll provide a brief update about the intention of some scheduling for board and commission recruitments, which at least does tangentially apply to the committees, because it looks like we will also appoint a subcommittee to help with that process. So Laura will put all that into context. We then also have brought back a matrix, which is in your packet, of what we heard from last week, of where there was expressed interest in serving. There are a few committees where we'll need refinement or additional clarity on who the primary reps would be or alternates, and make sure that we have the right number. And then thirdly, there is a resolution in your packet as directed related to Sound Cities Association membership. As part of the conversation last week, the mayor and deputy mayor committed to the council to be meeting with SCA leadership, which they did do on Friday. So as Laura works her way through, we'll then also have a good opportunity to pause and turn it back to the deputy mayor to represent that meeting and to propose next steps. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our city clerk, Laura Hathaway, to share with you a little bit more about board and commission recruitments, and then also to walk you through the committee assignments. Laura?
Well, apparently I can't share anything, so. Hold on one second.
It's when you say you can't, then it works.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I'm hopeful. There we go. But when I do this, it goes away, I think. See? It goes away. I don't know what's happening. Anyway.
Well,
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Eileen. Okay,
Thanks for
sorry
standing
about
up,
that.
Amy. That did it.
Sorry about that. So, yeah. As Kyle said, we have our annual recruitment for boards and commissions coming up. And this year we have 13 openings among all of our boards and commissions. And later we'll confirm who's going to be on the selection committee to review those applications. But this year we're going to open recruitment from January 26th through February 20th. We have an open house scheduled for January 27th. And then interviews will be March 24th. If that doesn't work, we can push it to March 31st. And we've got appointments scheduled for April 7th or 14th. And then terms begin May 1. And then, this is very brief, but our recruitment efforts will include, obviously, the city's website, social media channels, e-news. I don't know where that went. Let's try that again. I didn't touch anything.
It has a mind of its own.
It apparently does, because this work just...
You're going to get it. It's going to come back.
E-news, I'm going to just skip over it. E-news and our subscribers, and then we will reach out to our current boards and commissions and the staff liaisons. We're also going to reach out to our diverse community groups. So please watch for that. If you're interested in applying for a board and commission, please look for that announcement to be up and running on January 20th. Thank you. Next time.
Can we get your mic on? Get your mic on.
Oh, sorry. All right, so next we're going to review the council committee reports, and I'm just going to run through all of these. I don't have a PowerPoint for this. I'm just going to run through the appointments that we made last week at the study session, and there's a few that we still need to, finalize as far as the appointee and the alternates. So I'm going to run through them one by one. The first one is the board and commission application review. So for that, I have Mayor Thompson, Council Members Dodd, and Councilmember Alcabra. Those three will review the board and commission applications as they come in. Next
Considering
one,
two of them are not present to say anything, we'll assume that they're okay with that.
we will. If they're not, they'll let me know. On the Human Services Committee, we have three appointments.
City Clerk, we have Councilmember Alcabra's mic on, so I'm wondering if we can hear from him.
Sorry, just a question. Are you looking at us to nod, or are you looking for a vote, like or somebody saying, no, I just want to...
So if anybody has any changes their mind or would like to throw their name in the ring, please let me know at the time we go through it.
Okay. cool. I just want to.
Do you want to withdraw?
No, I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
Okay.
I'm asking how do we confirm that, okay, this
Yeah, and at the end, I'll
silence
ask
is.
for confirmation.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. The Human Services Committee, we've got 3 appointments plus an alternate, and so we've had Deputy Mayor Alders, Councilmember Miles and Councilmember Alcabra put their name in, and with Councilmember Dodd as the alternate.
And I'd like to speak up and swap the alternate role for myself and extend the opportunity to Councilmember Dodd to be the main appointment on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. The Left One Board, we have 2 appointments, and we had 3 people express interest, so I'm looking for confirmation on who those appointees will be. The council members that asked to be appointed to that or expressed willingness to serve were Mayor Thompson, Councilmember Miles, and Councilmember Alcabra. So like I said, we have 2 appointments with 3.
I'll drop.
Okay,
Make it
thank
easy.
you. So the appointments to that will be Mayor Thompson and Councilmember Miles. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, we have 1 appointment plus an alternate, and we had 2 people express interest, Councilmember Anguluri and Councilmember Alcabra. We just need one of you to decide which one's going to be the alternate.
I'll be alternate.
Okay, great. Thank you. The Public Safety Committee, we suspended, we're going to keep that with the full council. Unless I hear differently. Okay. We're going to move on to regional meetings now. So the Association of Snohomish County, Cities, and Towns, that one is an informal appointment. I just want to point out that all of you receive an email invite and decide who will attend as needed. Their first meeting of the year is scheduled for January 15th. So if anybody would like to go to that, you should have all received an invite. I don't know if you did, but I can forward it to you. Is there anybody who wishes to attend that meeting on January 15th?
Councilmember Curd.
Thanks. I'm registered to attend, but I'm not making the commitment to go every month.
Okay.
Just, I know that this upcoming Thursday, is it Thursday? Mm-hmm. Is the election meeting, and so it's kind of a bigger, more invitational meeting to attend. So all are welcome. And tonight is the last night that you can RSVP. So send a message to Catherine.
It's also conflicting with the Wayne Open Space Open House. And so when I know it was a hard one to choose between.
Yeah.
So I chose to plan to attend the open house. And I appreciate that Councilmember Curd will be attending. At least one voice from Bothell will be there.
I look forward to your update in community
All right,
reports.
we'll just do a little swap of reports. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Community Transit Board is our next one, and we have 1 appointment, and we talked about this last week, so that was Councilmember Dodd. So we're good on that, and she will be attending the January 15th board member selection meeting with Community Transit. Next up, we have East Side Transportation Partnership. We have 2 appointments plus 2 alternates. We had Councilmember Anguluri sign up to be one of the alternates, and Mayor Thompson, Councilmember Curd, and Councilmember Alcabra all expressed interest in serving. So if one of you would like to become the alternate.
Well, the problem is the mayor isn't here so that we can yell at each other for it. So how strongly does Mason want it? No?
I don't want it.
You don't want it?
Yeah, I'll drop.
Okay.
I can become an alternate. I already have another Friday committee, so
You're full. Okay.
Yeah, this would be good.
There you go.
Alternate.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next one is King County Cities Climate Collaboration, which is also known as K4C. I have Councilmember Alders, and if I'm wrong on any of these, please point out that I'm wrong on these. But I have Councilmember Alders signed up, and as well as Councilmember Dodd. This it has one appointment plus one alternate. I don't know about Councilmember Dodd because she's not here.
And I'm not trying to take advantage of the situation, but I am going to put myself in it for alternate on that one.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Let's see, next we have the Metropolitan Solid Waste Advisory Committee, which is only one appointment, and Councilmember Curd said he would do that, attend that one, so we're good there. We have, let's see, one new one that was added last week on Monday, the Arch Council of Elected Officials. This has one appointment plus one alternate. We had Deputy Mayor Alders sign up to be the alternate, and we have council members Miles and Alcabra express interest in serving on the committee, so I need just one of you.
I'll drop.
You'll drop, okay. So we have Councilmember Miles and Deputy Mayor Alders, as the alternate. The next one is we had the Cascade College President's Community Advisory Council, and that is one appointment, one alternate. Councilmember Angulari signed up to be the alternate, and Councilmember Alcabra has signed up to be the appointee on that one, so we're good there, unless anybody has any changes. Okay. Next, the next one we have is the North King County Coalition on Homelessness. I have Councilmember Angulari signed up to be the appointee with Deputy Mayor Alders as the alternate. Thank you. And the next one is the North Urban Human Services Alliance. That one has one appointment, which Councilmember Dodd expressed interest in, and Councilmember Miles expressed interest in being an alternate. I don't show that one has an alternate appointment, but
There's no problem. I don't even remember that.
So, thank you.
I was alternate this year for NUSA, and I got all the emails and was invited repeatedly to attend. So you are welcome to become an alternate there. They want anyone and everyone to join.
It's sort of an unofficial alternate. It's nice to have backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I do get their stuff too. Thank you. I'll do it.
Cool.
Thank you.
The unofficial alternate goes to Councilmember Miles.
I'm putting it down, unofficial.
Okay, next up, we have the North Shore Parks and Recreation Service Area Board, also known as the MPRSA. That requires two appointments plus one alternate. I have three people signed up, expressed interest in this. That is Councilmember Angulari, Councilmembers Dodd, and Councilmember Alcabra. I need one of you to be an alternate.
I can be alternative.
Okay, great, thank you. The Regional Crisis Response Agency, RACER, that requires one appointment plus one alternate. I've had three people express interest in that, and that is Deputy Mayor Alders, Councilmember Miles, and Councilmember Dodd. So I need one of you to decide who's going to be alternate and one to drop.
I can be alternate.
And I will drop.
Perfect, thank you. The Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee, that requires one appointment plus one alternate. Councilmember Curd expressed interest in being the appointee, and Mayor Thompson has expressed interest in being the alternate, so I think we're good there. The next one is Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee, which we will talk about in a moment. The next one is the WIRA 8 Forum. That is one appointment plus one alternate. And Councilmember Curd expressed interest in serving on that, with Councilmember Angulari expressing interest as attending as the alternate. So we're good there as long as you both are good there. Thank you. And then we have the WashDOT Executive Advisory Groups for I-405 and SR-167 Corridor Plan, and that is one appointment, and Mayor Thompson has indicated that he would be the appointee for that. The rest are mayor's meetings, so we have Mayor Thompson listed for the Mayor's Tribal Leaders Meeting, the North End Mayor's Monthly Meeting, and South Snohomish County Mayor's Monthly Meeting. So everybody good with all those? I would love to hear confirmation. We don't need a formal motion, but just confirmation that we're good. And I will send out the finalized list tomorrow to all of you. Perfect, thank you. And now we're going to talk about the second part of this is the Sound Cities Association and whether or not we want to remain as members. So I will kick it over to City Manager Stannard.
Thank you, Laura. So again, as noted, the mayor and deputy mayor did meet with the executive director of Sound Cities Association. You do have a resolution in your packet tonight, but as always, council is not you don't have to take action. So the deputy mayor, I'll turn it over to you if you have any thoughts or proposal to share with your colleagues, and then we can walk through next steps.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide a report of our meeting. We did meet with the director of SCA and discussed some of our concerns. And he will be taking those concerns back to the SCA board. And instead of, we want to give the board time to resolve the concerns and take action. So the proposal that we have, that I'm bringing forward tonight, is that we would that we would return to this subject in February, and that the staff might be able to bring it back to us by the end of February, so that there is time for resolution to occur. So that means I'm using resolution in two different ways. We're not going to resolve to support the resolution in the packet. We are going to wait for resolution from the board of SCA. Is that a motion? Am I making a motion?
I mean, you certainly can. You might want to hear
we can have discussion as well, but that's the suggestion that I'm making. And so if there's any discussion from council, would love to hear it.
I had a question. What did you propose back to SCA?
We were asking for resolution around a topic that came up while the mayor was serving on their board, and so that would be a conversation I think to have with the mayor specifically. Go ahead, Councilmember Alcabra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question, when is the dues due?
Yeah, great question. From the last couple of years of monitoring, SCA typically sends the invoice out. I think it often goes directly to the mayor, so I will follow up with him to see if he's received one. The due date is by the end of February, so the timing of having resolution on this in February, or at least define next steps, would be helpful. And if we haven't received an invoice yet, we can also clarify with the Sound Cities Association if they are, because of the circumstance and the notice of intent to withdraw, if they are considering our deadline differently. So I'll get some clarity on that and share it with council.
And how are we going to hear of the resolution? Is it going to come to you, city manager, and then you bring it to us in a study session? What's the process?
Great question. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that if the board did make any action or wanted to come visit to council or anything, I'm quite confident they will email the entire council. If it was just to me, I'll forward it. But I think we'd be looking for some sort of communication back from them, either a request to present to you or something to consider in writing. And then we'll place that on an agenda for the council to have information on when we bring back another resolution, to keep using the word.
Councilmember Curd.
Thanks. If that was a motion to sort of delay, not table, but delay, well, I will make a motion if that is more germane to our process.
Councilmember Curd, I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
Eileen Kiefer, your city attorney. A motion to postpone to a date certain, the last meeting in February, I think would be appropriate.
Okay. I move to postpone action on this item until the last meeting in February.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, go ahead, City Clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Anguilari.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alders.
Yes.
Councilmember Curd.
Yes.
Councilmember Miles.
Yes.
And Councilmember Alcabra.
Yes.
Passes 5-0 with Mayor Thompson and Councilmember Dodd absent and excused.
I like the action music with the votes. I love it.
Little extra flavor to our meetings. Next up, we have a study session. And so it is 7:07. How about we take a break to 7:20? That's a 13-minute break. And we will meet down at the tables. Thank you very much. All right, thank you everyone for returning. We're gonna kick this over to City Manager Stanner to introduce Long Range Planner Cameron Colvin.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. We're hot tonight. I feel loud in my own head. We do have one study session tonight, and I know for some of you it'll feel like a conversation we've been in the midst of for quite a long time, and for two of you it'll be your first opportunity to chime in. But tonight is a study session to talk about the draft urban forest management plan. You'll hear a little bit more about that, and again, I'm sure in Cameron's introduction I'll steal this point. It started as a council priority, and so we've had this initiated, and this work ultimately is not the end, right? But this gives the overall direction of where the council would like to see the staff go, and actions will be coming from it. But this is a great opportunity tonight to make sure that things are on the right track. With that, Christian, do you have anything? Perfect. I will turn things over, as the Deputy Mayor said, to Senior Planner Cameron Colvin, and he's also joined tonight by Deputy Director Christian Getz, if you have not met him yet, and we'll help walk through this item. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Council. So as the City Manager mentioned, I'm going to try to walk through a bit of dense material tonight, but keep it as approachable as possible. So as mentioned, this project has kicked off at the beginning of last year, so a lot of work has been done and put into the draft that was included in your packet. Just to start out for tonight with some basic definitions. What is an urban forest? So urban forests typically refer to all trees and wooded vegetation within an urban area. The scope of this project includes trees on both public and private land, such as parks, natural areas, our streets, commercial and residential properties. As we know, trees provide a multitude of benefits to our community. They help purify air and clean water. They provide necessary shade for animals and habitat, as well as helping us conserve energy in our buildings. They also provide aesthetic benefits and mental health benefits for recreation, and there's also research that shows that they contribute to higher property values. So some common challenges, obviously with trees, they're a lot more constrained when they are in an urban setting. They have to deal with development pressures from new development, infrastructure conflicts with root growth expanding and running into nearby sidewalks, roadways, or utility lines. They're up against compacted soils a lot of times. There are often questions around ownership and maintenance, whether a tree is on public property or private, and who maintains that. And then, like all trees and other vegetation, they face invasive species, the risk of pests, and a changing climate that are also challenges. So the overall purpose of this plan is it's our strategic plan for how we make sure that trees remain a vital part of our community as Bothell continues to grow. There was conversation earlier tonight about our aggressive housing targets. And so this plan is that other piece of that. So how do we balance new housing while also ensuring that we preserve nature and that it's incorporated as part of our community? So as the city manager mentioned, this was a strategic priority that was called out in the 2040 City Council vision. The two pieces that were specifically called out were making sure that we address preservation of heritage trees or more mature trees in the community, and then also making sure that we include a strategy to plant new street trees where we currently lack them. As at the end of last year, we updated or year before last? No, time is flying by. We updated our comprehensive plan, which also includes several goals and strategies all around tree preservation, canopy expansion, and integrating trees in our land use, transportation, and infrastructure policies. Trees were also a huge topic that we heard from the community about during all of the outreach for the comprehensive plan update. So this is really a continuation of that conversation. And then just this past November, we adopted the city's first climate action plan, which identifies tree preservation and planting as a key strategy to reduce heat, energy use, and greenhouse gas emissions. So this plan was kind of developed in parallel with that plan, and they build upon each other and reinforce one another. So I'm going to run through some of the key findings from earlier this year. Up on the screen is an overall project schedule that we followed over the course of the last year. So the first half of last year was really front-loaded with a lot of the background research, gathering of data so that we could inform the plan. This included a tree canopy assessment where we collected data on tree cover at a citywide scale. And it also included an on-the-ground inventory of trees that are located within public right-of-way. So we have both of those data to kind of go off of. And then the second half of the year was taking that data forward, going out into the community, sharing some of those details, getting input on what their common challenges and priorities are and what they would like to see reflected in the plan. So that's what helped develop a lot of the goals and strategies that you see included in the draft before you. So looking at the tree canopy assessment data, so the most recent data that this was built off of is from 2023. And what we found from this assessment is that in 2023, within city limits, 44% of our land cover has trees and tree cover on it. If we look at just the urban growth area outside of that thicker black line, there's 35% tree cover, and when you combine both, it's 41%. And one of the key details here is that over 2/3 of those trees are located within critical areas, which do have more stringent environmental protections that apply to them. So prior to this plan and the updated tree canopy assessment, Bothell did have a previous tree canopy assessment that was done back in 2015 that we were able to revisit, update some of the methodology so we could have a one-to-one comparison of those two data sets and really identify some trends of what we're seeing over that 8-year period. So the map that's up on the screen is a honeycomb or hotspot map. The areas that are identified in red are the areas where we had a larger decrease in tree coverage, and the areas shown in green and dark green are the areas that saw an increase. So as you can see, increases and decreases of tree cover are not uniform across the city. A lot of the areas where we saw growth are protected natural areas. So that larger patch in the north portion of the city is one of our largest protected wetland areas where several tributaries of North Creek converge. So what we saw between 2015 and 2023 is that overall we lost about 0.7% of tree coverage during that time. It's a little bit higher of a rate within the UGA, which saw a large amount of development during that time, 3.2%. And when we combine both, 1.4% tree loss during that time. So just taking that into context of how much Bothell grew, how much new development we saw during that period of time, it's a fairly small change. But as you can see, it's very dependent on each neighborhood and how that applies throughout the city. So one of the other things we looked at as part of the tree canopy assessment was in an ideal situation, how much land is actually available for new tree plantings. And so some of the things that we excluded from this were things like existing built environment, existing easements that may create conflicts, recreational fields, things of that nature. And what we found is that approximately 15% of land area in the city of Bothell could have trees on it. And one important caveat there is, like I mentioned, it doesn't take into account existing impervious surface. So one opportunity area with infill development is the potential for conversion of existing impervious surface. This is to new trees or green areas. And then finally, one of the other maps I wanted to highlight was the equity assessment that was done as part of this study. So they took a combination of data looking at existing tree canopy, where there was a large amount of possible planting area, the heat mitigation potential, and then existing socioeconomic data to layer those things together to help us prioritize, or at least on a rough scale, identify the areas of the city where trees are needed most. And so the areas that are highlighted in that dark blue color show the ones that ranked the highest on this scale, and the ones in yellow scored lower, given those factors. Any questions on the tree canopy assessment data before I move on to the street tree inventory? Yeah.
Compared to Kirkland or Kenmore, other cities, are we overall doing good?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that shortly. So one of the things we did do as part of this assessment is look at both existing tree canopy cover as well as future canopy goals of neighboring jurisdictions. So I do have a slide coming up on that goes into a bit more detail. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you go back a slide, the prioritization, you mentioned that this is regarding equity, like the equity analysis in the city. On page 75 in the agenda packet, there's also the tree equity score map. How do these two differ? And like, what of the same information is in there too?
That's a great question. So they're two separate methodologies or metrics to kind of look at the equal distribution of trees. I would say similarly, the tree equity score metric looks at existing tree canopy and socioeconomic data. Some of the additional things that are factored into Planet Geo's analysis were the potential planting area, so considering where we can actually plant new trees, and then the heat mitigation potential as well.
Okay, maybe you can help me understand which of these areas can have more trees planted there? Like the color scheme. Like I get the one on page 75 showing that, North Creek and Canyon Park are particularly good locations to try to site new trees. Like that one's clear to me. The color coding on this one is less clear.
Sure. So the potential planting area, this map is just a piece of that. So the areas highlighted in that light green color are areas that new trees could potentially be planted. And that's factored into a combination of that data along with existing total tree cover, the socioeconomic data, the heat mitigation potential. And so the census blocks that scored highest are highlighted in this dark blue color. And the numbers on the map also reflect kind of the order of how well they scored given all that criteria.
So if there's overlap between the two, like for example, 57 and 59 here, which looks like North Creek. Well, maybe that's not North Creek. That would be an area where more trees could be planted than a blue, or blue is where more trees could be planted?
Yeah, so really the purpose of this map is just to give us an initial indicator of where we might want to prioritize trees. And so it's not the yellow areas, but the opposite, the dark blue areas where we would want to try to prioritize first.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to the street tree inventory. So the scope of this work, as I mentioned, it was an on-the-ground inventory that was done by Planet Geo and certified arborists. It included all trees within public right-of-way. And the one thing I'll mention is that we focused on trees within right-of-way first because of what was called out in the 2040 vision and really needing that data to help inform where we have existing street trees and where they're needed. But this inventory can be built out in the future to also include trees within our parks or other trees that the city helps maintain. So in total, they ended up inventorying over 15,000 trees across the city, including 228 unique species throughout those. When we look at species diversity of the trees inventoried, we did see a high concentration of maples throughout the city. So red maples being the most common, followed by Douglas firs, western red cedars, and katsura trees. And generally, the rule of thumb or kind of recommendation is to aim for having no more than 10% of the same species, no more than 20% of the same genus, and no more than 30% of the same family of trees. And so just based on the inventory data, again, which is just a selection of trees within right-of-way, we met the 30% of the same family, but not the first two criteria. So that kind of indicates that we do need to vary the type of trees that are being planted as street trees to create more diversity and improve resistance to pests and other factors. Some of the other data collected during the inventory was the size of trees inventoried. And so when we look at the distribution of all of those collected, you'll notice that we have a large portion of trees that are in that smaller range between 1 to 12 inches in size, a slightly smaller percent within that mid-range of 12 to 24 inches, and then the smallest percent of very mature street trees within that 24 to 30 plus range. And so the bar graphs that are in blue shows the percentage from the inventory. And then the bars in red are what are kind of recommended for a good distribution of size and age of trees to ensure good turnover as trees mature and continue to age and new trees are planted. So as I mentioned, once we kind of gathered all this data, we went out and did community engagement. So what that included was a community-wide survey during the first portion of the year to hear about common challenges and what people would like to see addressed in the plan. We hosted a more targeted focus group that had representatives from the development community, environmental groups, as well as neighborhood associations to hear from them. And then we hosted a public open house in October to share the recommendations that have been informed from the prior engagement and help refine those further. So some of the common themes that we heard throughout the engagement was a high community concern regarding tree loss from new development, a common need for clearer guidance, both in terms of navigating our tree retention and landscaping codes, but also in terms of tree maintenance and species selection for private property owners as well. There was a lot of support for our existing planting programs and partnerships and encouragement to continue and expand those and look at potential incentives to help additionally encourage private homeowners to plant trees on their property. And then finally, there was also a desire to make sure that we address street tree conflicts with nearby infrastructure. The graph that I have on the right of the screen there is a question that we included in the initial community-wide survey asking, what is your vision? Would you like to see the city have more trees, keep the same amount, or decrease? We had 0 people say decrease for obvious reasons. 26% would like to kind of maintain the level of tree coverage within Bothell as we continue to grow. And a majority, 74%, said they would like to see more trees. So going over the plan itself, the overall vision statement that came out of that engagement work was that Bothell envisions an urban forest that benefits all residents equitably, is managed for long-term sustainability, and is recognized as a vital community asset that enhances quality of life, environmental health, and climate resilience. And so one of the things that this plan establishes or addresses is a long-term citywide tree canopy goal. So this is something that we can essentially pair up with our housing targets and use as a metric to kind of gauge how well we're doing and making sure that we're on track and making progress to make sure trees are retained. So we offered a range of options when working with the Planning Commission around this topic. The bottom line shows kind of projections if no changes were made just based on development patterns that we're seeing. And then the options that were provided were looking at maintaining the existing percentage of tree canopy cover or increasing that up to 4%. And what we kind of landed on with Planning Commission was a recommendation of a 2% increase over that 20-year period. Part of what influenced that was a recognition that we do have a very high need for housing, and we also want to preserve trees, and there is a trade-off there. And so being somewhat realistic about how we can accommodate that while still addressing the high community concern about tree loss and making sure that we are able to not only maintain but see an increase over that period of time. And one of the things that isn't necessarily reflected in these projections are the future code revisions that are on the docket for this coming year. So that'll help strengthen our existing codes and also hopefully mitigate some of those losses from new development and create more flexibility and incentives. So for those that are interested in some of the details, up on the screen is what some of the assumptions that went into those projections. So we looked at the data from 2015 to 2023 and the annual amount of loss that we were seeing and kind of projecting that out as continuing into the future. It considered natural regrowth and regeneration, mortality of new and existing trees, and then you'll notice the trees added annually was an estimation of how many new trees would need to be planted for us to reach this goal. And the anticipation here is that it wouldn't necessarily be 100% from just city efforts, but a combination of both city, new development, as well as private property owners through incentive programs to help accomplish that. So going back to one of the questions earlier, how does the city of Bothell's existing canopy coverage and canopy goal compare to neighboring jurisdictions? So we looked at a long list of neighboring jurisdictions and compiled their existing canopy cover and canopy goals. I will note that existing canopy cover really depends on the environment and topography of the city itself and kind of historical development patterns. So the larger percents aren't necessarily a direct tie to how well the city is doing or how well their code is protecting trees, but it reflects kind of a combination of things. But what you will notice is that in terms of canopy goals, we're within a fairly similar range of other cities there. And I will mention that a few of these actually set an initial canopy target, have met that, and then revisited and increased their canopy cover goals. So this isn't necessarily something that's locked in stone over the next 20 years. It's meant to just be a first step and something that we can use to gauge progress and then kind of go from there. So digging into the actual strategies and plan recommendations that are included in the plan, these are organized into 4 main focus areas. The first being urban forest mapping, assessments, and strategic planning. So how do we leverage and continue to update some of this new data that we now have available to us? Municipal program, which focuses on our internal operations, and then community engagement, and then one specifically around policy, codes, and standards. So some of the things that are covered within that first category, it establishes the citywide can't be covered goal. It talks about maintaining and expanding our street tree inventory that was collected. It presents a schedule for regularly updating the tree canopy assessments, because that's the data that we're really going to be able to use to gauge progress and the trends that we're seeing. It develops a cyclical maintenance and monitoring recommendation, prioritizing planting where it's needed most, and then securing long-term protection of our key forested areas through future land acquisition or partnerships to make sure that those remain in place and protected. The municipal program section talks about strengthening cross-departmental coordination. So, trees affect multiple aspects of the city, and so staff within community development, parks, as well as public works all deal with trees on a daily basis. And so making sure that we're talking to one another and being efficient there. Defining service levels and resource needs for the future and what that means in terms of necessary funding. Expanding staff training opportunities. Maintaining our Tree City USA designation. So this is something that the city has been recognized for since 2000. And we were just recognized for this year and also awarded the Growth Award, which we've also received over the past, I believe, 5 or so years for our existing forestry programs. And then community engagement. So this section talks about, addressing that need for clear and consistent guidance materials, expanding our opportunities to partner with schools, nonprofits, and local organizations on tree planting, care, and education, establishing new volunteer programs for tree stewardship, and then recognizing those community leadership, as well as notable trees throughout the community that are especially large or significant in nature. And then finally, policy, codes, and standards. So one of the things that came out of our consultants' work are some great recommendations of how we can strengthen our existing code and implement some industry best practices as part of that. It also talks about developing a tree manual, which would include a recommended species list and provide some of that detailed guidance around navigating the regulatory environment, selecting species, and maintaining trees. It talks about looking at our existing permitting and development review processes and how to improve those. Expanding incentives for tree retention and planting, as well as flexibility for developers, and then integrating climate resilient species and practices. And then the implementation plan section really just lays out the proposed timelines for completing each of those things. It identifies department leads and where supporting roles. It breaks a lot of the strategies into more detailed steps. And then it also provides resources and considerations, identifying things like funding and partnership opportunities that we could leverage moving forward. And this is just an example of how those are listed in the implementation matrix. So for each of the actions, you'll see a list of those implementation steps, the lead department, kind of a range, general range of costs, expectations. And then there's icons on the left-hand side that kind of identify whether it's action that has more of a focus on public trees versus private trees, or that'll require a public-private partnership. So as mentioned, we worked very closely with the Planning Commission on a lot of what's included in the plan. They reviewed and discussed the latest draft at their November 19th and December 17th meetings, and expressed strong support and recommend adoption. And with that, I will take any questions and kind of open it up for discussion. We had included 2 questions in your packet to think about. So we can maybe start there, or I can take other questions as they come up.
When it comes to incentives, we live in a homeowner association. We have a 20 acres of green space, and we came to know that going forward, as per our arborist, if we need to remove a tree, we need to inform City of Bothell, for example. So I like the idea of incentives, partnership with the homeowner associations, any kind of incentives we can think of, or have you guys thought about incentives with the homeowner associations where they have a large green space?
That's a good question. We had a number of homeowners associations reach out, especially when we were doing the street tree inventory. And so we got to visit a lot of those neighborhoods and talk with them about common problems. A lot of what we saw was issues where in older neighborhoods where the street trees had matured over the past 30 plus years and were causing issues with sidewalks or roadways or things like that. But yeah, that's definitely something else we can look at as how we can leverage those partnerships to create additional incentives. I did mention that we are going to be taking a look at our existing permitting process. And so part of that is looking at, single lot tree removals, what is required for those and how we can make that a more streamlined process.
I'm also excited about the conversations around incentives and partnerships. I think there are a lot of people in Bothell who would hear tree planting activity and say, I'm there. I know that the Whale Scout planting activities are very popular. There's one on Monday to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Highly recommend going. I know that I very much look forward to being at that. Excuse me. And so I just think that over the course of, the next 20 years in this plan, you'll see a lot of community engagement beyond we want more trees. They will actually take the action of let's put more trees in the ground. And so I think that you have a strength in our community in that way and can put the word out and invite, whether it's the homeowners associations or the neighborhoods or just put it citywide, you'll get some good response on that. I'm hoping that there can be partnerships even to the point of with the conservation district and the tree sales and vouchers and that kind of thing, that we could do more of that to encourage homeowners to, add trees to their property. It reminds me of when I got a free tree sapling from the church I grew up in, and we took it home and we planted it. And then 30 years later, I went back and I saw it, and we didn't really know what we were doing. And so I'm pretty sure it kind of grew up and then over and then up again. But it had stayed, and that tree continued to be a tree. And so I think that, some good public education around, proper staking and support and would be great, so that, others have more straight trees than we ended up with. It was a very unique looking tree. It was great. But So I know that that is one of the strengths of the city as well, to put, public projects, public opportunities out there for volunteering and education. And I very much can picture what this might look like. What I'm understanding is that the 2% goal is planting about 300 trees a year. And that sounds awesome. Like, I hear what you're saying around, if we were to be more ambitious than that and wanting to do 500 trees a year, how that might come into conflict with building goals. And my understanding, looking at the 15% of, plantable tree area, that I don't know if we really run that high of a risk of having those conflicts, because we've identified places where trees can be planted, and there's opportunity to plant a lot more trees than what we have the bandwidth to plant. And so I'm wondering if maybe if we see really great response from our community in terms of tree planting, that we could be able to increase that goal, because we see that there's the appetite and the energy for it. That's sort of what I'm thinking, is that, like, what if we plant 300 trees real fast, and we're like, oh, we have more time in the year to plant trees, then can we do that, even if our target is a lower number? So those are some of my thoughts.
Extending on homeowner associations, one of the homeowner associations that I know, they are 20 years old. There could be other associations 30 plus years old. Some of the trees are dying and they don't have a budget to replace the plants. Is there any way that we can partner? So as we know, last 10 years, we have a lot of homeowner associations came. Sometimes they may not have the budget. Maybe we can partnership to, I don't know, to replace those, because those are public city. Of course, I think the trees are owned by HOA, but sometimes they don't have budget to replace it. Maybe something to look into it.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, typically homeowners associations do help with the maintenance of right-of-way trees. And so, yeah, I mean, depending on resources, that's definitely something that we could take a look at.
I like the idea of Deputy Mayor saying that we start with a number, and then it's like an experiment, like everything else we do. And we, in a year or 6 months, a year, however long, we say, because as you were talking about the targets, I was thinking, can we align that with the housing targets and see how the two, if we're going to be metric driven, how every 6 months or a year we start looking at housing applications and trees and see how the two combine. So I like that idea of experimentation. You want to respond to that one? Because I have other thoughts.
No, just to confirm, I think it's a great idea. I don't know that 6 months, but for sure. And you'll remember in September we brought a dashboard for council priorities, and I think one of the things that it's actually tied to the council vision intentionally. I'll correct myself yet again. Tied to the vision, because as the priorities change, like the priority for this one was around creating the plan. But in order to accomplish the vision by 2040, tree canopy continues to be an issue. And so we'll continue to update that on the dashboard, hopefully make that even more dynamic in the future, and continue to report to council when we bring information back. I think that's it's a good move. And again, if there's more interest of saying, let's set a different benchmark now, I think that works too. But I think always having the option of seeing how is the response, what are the opportunities, we may find opportunities to leverage, as Councilmember Aguilar is saying, with homeowners associations or other schools or different things of where we're able to create a different condition. And if we see opportunity to go more, I think that's possible.
All that to say is that I'm okay with the number. It's a good number. The how you got to it seems reasonable, so I think I'm good with it. The other thing that may be related to your second question, and something that just came up, we are in the winter season, and this was not this season we were fortunate. It's not as bad. Last year was really bad. I think. And soggy grounds and strong winds are not a good combo for trees. Maybe if it was bad this year, I don't even remember. So it's fine. Or maybe I wasn't even around. So
It was when we had the winds coming from the west because the trees are.
that was last year.
Yeah,
right?
they're
that
not
was
used to being hit on that side, and there was a bunch that fell. Yeah.
So
you
anyway,
remember
so there's
correctly.
always a thing on the. Every once in a while, a tree falls and blocks, and power goes out, and it takes days and all that. So how are we going to mitigate? Because related to this, individuals they start saying, "Hey, I don't want to have this tree in my backyard anymore. I want to cut it because now I'm too scared it'll fall and cause a lot of other problems." Are we gonna? I know that's private property, but in general, how do we start mitigating against, or mitigating for things we don't have control over, like climate change?
Yeah, so part of that's definitely an education piece, but also through proper tree maintenance and getting ahead of that, doing regular prunings to make sure that loose branches are trimmed and taken care of. That can also prevent a lot of the debris, obviously, or if there's larger weather events that take down the whole tree, that's a different thing. But that is one way that we can help mitigate part of that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And now we have a solid communications department also, that because it'll be good to educate people ahead of time, not just when winter season hits, but in general. Here's how you proper maintenance and things. And then to Councilmember Angelou's point is, how do we partner with residents also, homeowner associations, but also residents in general, to have those conversations. Not all of us. I like to plant trees. I don't know how to take care of them. So, So, thank you.
One other thing I was going to quickly add. Just as a consideration, a lot of the tree canopy assessment data I will mention is dependent on some national data and aerial imagery that we get. So it'll likely be on like a 4 to 5 year time frame that we get updated data to look at. So it won't be quite at the same frequency that we're getting development data, but we will be able to look at it on a fairly regular basis.
Sorry.
I was going to say, don't have any questions, or it's mostly feedback. I think this was a really robust presentation. Every time I had a question, you already had a slide prepared. So all of my questions have been actually answered by you. So I'm impressed with the work that's been done.
I second that. Just a question on the inventory. How often we do this inventory in city of Bothell, and usually how accurate? I mean, not to point, just how accurate is it? Like 95% we are accurate. Obviously, there is always error.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was actually the first time we've ever done an inventory of this scale, and part of that was because we had funding available through a grant through the Department of Commerce that helped support this work, as well as the Climate Action Plan. But it provided a lot of great data, and so it's something that we do want to maintain moving forward. It is very labor intensive. So now that we have the data as a starting point, it's more easier to maintain. And so hopefully we won't have to do quite so robust of a update in the future.
But do we have a plan? Like how often we plan to do it in city of Bothell?
We're working on it, integrating it into our day-to-day operations now. It'll be kind of multiple pieces, both as new development comes in, making sure that new street trees are added, as our streets teams go out and maintain or remove trees, that we're capturing that during different periods. It'll kind of be updated on a more regular basis is the goal.
Understand. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. This has been really helpful to see, and I really appreciate the work that Planning Commission did on this too. They did a heavy lift for us, so thanks for taking that off our plate. And yeah, I agree with the numbers. just in November, I planted 1% of, of our need for the year. So I think that it seems doable to expect 100 people just like me to plant 3 trees. That's doable. And each year, if we have to reassess, we can adaptively manage that as time goes on and as the data suggests higher need, or if we're doing good and we can stretch the goal a little bit further. I think that works too. One of the things that surprised me in the presentation was that 2/3 of our forestry canopy comes from protected critical areas. And that was sort of a gap that I saw in some of the strategies, was that there wasn't a direct line to the Shoreline Master Program, riparian programs. I know that Whale Scout and at the former Wayne Golf Course, there's a lot of effort to try to shade stream areas. We can't shade out and cool down the Sammamish River because it's just way too hot. But streams, if we can keep that water cold long enough, that's really critical. So I recognize that it wasn't the first and foremost thing that came up in the public feedback, but it was fairly high, is protecting stream areas with additional canopy coverage. So that would be something that I am curious about, how you plan to integrate into the Shoreline Master Program. And because we'll be coming up on an update or kicking it off in a year or maybe 3, that'll be something that it's good to have this groundwork, but it'd also be good to recognize in the plan somewhere that we'll be addressing riparian areas specifically, but also other protected areas too, just because that's where the majority of our trees are. I think we should recognize that in the plan. I've gotten a lot of calls this last year from HOAs about trees, and they haven't actually been about street trees, which has been surprising. They've been about trees in tract properties where there's little to no, I want to say, ownership over what happens in those tract properties in GPAs, or native growth protection areas. Sometimes they're called green belts, but there's a discrepancy between what's happening in those areas, the oversight that the city of Bothell and the role that we play as a city organization in protecting those areas, and also in informing relevant stakeholders, I guess they'd be, in how to maintain, how to, if we're making everybody a forester, then certainly we need to have a right tree, right place conversations. We need to have planting conversations. If you can invest so many dollars into a tree and it's planted too deep, you haven't set it up for success, and so that was waste of money. So there's also been, I've had conversations with people that have said the neighboring HOA is planting invasive species into our tract properties, and there's no oversight over that. There's no, if it's HOA that was developed before our current code, which is most of them, there's no fencing requirements. And so those are sorts of like under the radar issues that will start to percolate up as this plan and implementation program continues on. So that is something that I hear HOA, and I'm not just thinking about Amber Ridge and the tree damage to the sidewalks there. It's actually ridiculous if you go there and see how thick the sidewalks have moved. And certainly Public Works has been out there grinding the sidewalks, and they've been doing the maintenance and have been having conversations with the HOA there. But it's also tract lots, and that's something that I don't think anybody really wants to put their legal stake on, but it would be really helpful to have more of a presence as a city in explaining what the benefit is for our whole community of those tract lots, and also what it means to steward those areas for HOAs or other stakeholders. There are a couple of large lot landowners in the city, particularly Norway and Bothell, that do own large plots of land that are not held in tract but are undevelopable because they are in critical areas. And so those are also specific landowners that might be considered stakeholders in that sort of engagement activity too. So I don't want to just limit it to HOAs because they have a lot on their plates too. But the final thing that I was thinking about through the presentation and also while reading through the plan was mitigation. So I had some folks who were surprised and taken aback by how many trees washout removed during some of the recent work, and it was kind of a shock. And I'm curious, what does mitigation look like for that? Do they pay into a fee and lieu structure that we could utilize as part of a wider? Do they have to even pay when they remove a tree? What are some of the things that you hear from people who come to you and say, I have a hazard tree in my property that needs to be removed? Or if they say, I'm going to remove a tree, or if someone says, somebody removed a tree on my property, what is the enforcement activity? What is the fee? Where do those fees go if we do collect them? And could they be wrapped into a more comprehensive program where we could subsidize tree planting activities for folks who, I mean, we sold out of the $40 vouchers to the Snohomish Conservation District in like 6 hours. So I think that there's an appetite for folks who just need the financial incentive that's been mentioned, and maybe the fee structure is one way that we can do that. I know some neighboring cities charge a lot of money for tree permits, and the perception is that we don't, but I don't actually have the data.
There's a lot to unpack there. And I think, when we look back at the washed out project aside, we look back at the canopy loss, it's not as intimidating as we thought when we saw it. So the code is doing something right. I mean, the regulations that will follow these strategies, we want to make sure we're thoughtfully crafting them with your guidance and with Planning Commission's guidance to make sure we're not creating regulations that are, capital R, all caps. They are regulations that have incentives, and they create these opportunities where there's, the ability for property owners to get a free permit or just a notification. Hey, here's what we'd like to do. We have an HOA, we have a tract, we have a large property. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing. What does that look like? What can we do, and what sort of simple process can we establish that isn't, punitive? We can pair that with, when a tree is perfectly healthy and it shouldn't be removed, yes, there may need to be a permit to go through that has a review and an assessment. Removing a tree is already expensive. Adding on top of that, the cost for an arborist report and all of those things can be very onerous. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with the work that'll come this year with the Title 12 code updates to incorporate incentives, piggybacking on the critical area ordinance updates to talk about the benefits of native planting requirements within the riparian management zones, and then looking to, yes, the SMP update in the future. How do we open up that code and make sure that we're tying the two together? So there could be some, if we need to get into the Title 14 update, we may, when it comes to voluntary restoration and what does that process and procedure look like, and we can get into those details to make sure it's sort of jumping off from where we currently are and where Bothell has gone without just immediately jumping to, well, you need a permit for this and this and this, and it's going to cost this. That's not necessarily the way to go. We can look to a lot of our peers that may have those processes, but how do we want to approach them and make sure it fits what Bothell wants? And it'll create that bump in that chart where, what is the little bit of bump up in protection and restoration and mitigation that we can establish that'll really help us. It won't make planting 318 trees a year that hard. And then as we reevaluate, we can see where we're at. And as Cameron mentioned, other cities have updated their targets based on what they've actually been able to achieve with new canopy cover assessments in the 4 to 5 year range. We'll be back here talking about updating strategies and potentially updating the code. So.
The only thing I'll add to that is that we also do have existing thresholds built into the code. So it's one thing if a homeowner wants to remove one or a small handful of trees. But if it's over a certain threshold, then there are more stringent requirements or permits required, fees associated with that. So that will be an aspect of this that we relook at as part of the code updates as well.
So a couple things, maybe to City Manager Stannard. Can we do a open house with homeowner association partnerships and residents to see what we can learn from them? They have a lot of large green spaces. Is that something that we can think of?
Yeah, I think as we look at implementation plans and we look at what the engagement looks like, I think calling out HOAs as a specific stakeholder group, and perhaps even it likely makes sense to focus on a conversation specific to them because there are different requirements or a different relationship that we would have than, for example, where I live, of where each homeowner focusing on a property. So I think it's a great thing to capture, and I think we can make note of that in terms of, as we get into implementation strategies and stakeholder engagement, is scheduling specific time with leadership representation from HOAs to hear from them, and then that'll help target the outreach of what we provide back.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll learn a lot. And the second question, maybe just for me and Miles, Council Member Miles. When we discuss like this, we come with a lot of ideas, and how do we translate them into actionable, like a quarterly, or how do we translate these into, like, okay, we are going to check on this in 3 months or 6 months. How do we do that?
Yeah, great question. So, a couple of things to do. Again, as Cameron mentioned, for something like the results of this, what we can do is we can be tracking of what's within the municipal responsibility. So what are the things that we're doing in the right of way, and that will have more real-time data for it. Again, can report out on the overall canopy percentage. That's one where it's a little less frequent. What would be helpful is that when we have, study sessions, the council a few years ago had a discussion about wanting to make them more conversational and get ideas on the table. And so, for example, in this situation, if there is a desire for reporting or whatever it might be, whatever is in your head of what would help make things actionable and successful, sharing that among your colleagues is great. We'll make sure there's agreement. We always listen to 7, not just 1. But by then, what that helps do is study sessions are never final. What will happen is with this, for example, staff will be coming back for adoption with a plan, and in that, when there's we've talked about resolutions a lot tonight, and we hereby resolve that. When we bring a resolution, you'll see there's a series of clauses that begin with whereas in that legislation is what it's considered. And those clauses can include guidance that we've gotten from council of if there is a specific direction of how are we going to monitor this. And so with that, then we go back as staff and we track to it, and it's my job as your accountable staff member to make sure that we're scheduling that. So again, there's a number of things that like progress towards the vision that we have committed to bringing multiple times a year. So you'll see it inception in that. But if there are specific things that you want to see, raising them, and again, if there's enough interest, whatever we report back takes staff time and capacity. So it's up to the council of if that's the right frequency, and then it's up to us to figure out how to respond. So I hope that's helpful, but I think if you do have a thought like that, ask it. Sure. And again, in this case, I do anticipate in talking to one of our leadership team members today in a check-in even, will be on this topic coming back in the first part of the year to talk about too of what is the work that the city then needs to do within our own control to coordinate on some of these goals, and how do they relate. We've had you've heard a theme tonight around what are the results of what council takes action on, and sometimes if there are unintended consequences, what might those be. And so as we look across plans of things like the bike plan with protected bike lanes, and then we think about Amber Ridge, for example, of heaving sidewalks, and are there things that we might have intention that we want to address. And then again, it's up to us as an organization to figure out how do we partner with it. That's a long answer, but hopefully it's helpful. And with that, if you do have something in mind that you would like to see, again, this is a great opportunity to discuss it.
I mean, couple of things first, just for us to learn. Do we get a minutes of meeting action items from this study session? Okay, this is after this, like as a council?
Yeah, so you'll see minutes in your packet, and that captures any, it's not a verbatim, but it does have then any direction or action items that are captured, correct?
Okay. Deputy Mayor Aldrich, do we want to have this kind of study session on this, or all the council, like every quarter or like half yearly, so that we can have it, like the progress, like every 6 months or something? Do we want to do that?
I think what I heard was that trees take time to grow, and that it would be less frequent than that. And did I hear you mention 4 to 5 years update? Yeah, and so it would be more on, I think, like a planning range similar to like the capital facilities plan, like just the amount of time that it takes to, like, so, you know, you could report this many trees were planted, you know, year 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is how many have survived, what they're, you know, what maturation they're at, and how that's shifted. So I would like, I think that the proposal that I'm hearing from staff makes sense to me, but I'm open to what others are saying.
Just the one clarifier that I'll make too is that, again, as we're growing in our maturity of being data informed, and so we have a dashboard posted. Again, as I mentioned, we want to make it more dynamic. So there's always the opportunity we're looking for ways of reporting out data in progress without necessarily bringing it back to council, but making it available to the entire community, including the council, so that when we have one-on-ones, if there's something you're seeing or not seeing that you want to discuss, that's an opportunity. And also, Christian, if you can speak to it, in my mind, as I'm thinking about this plan in particular, this plan is a first step, but then there will be several actions, I believe, that will come. And I think maybe you can give an example or two, but what I think you'll see is with this one in particular, you'll see items coming back as a result of this plan that will tie back to this plan so that they conceptually all tie together. But you'll see action steps being made through policy and, you know, using an example like a program for if we do want to have homeowner incentives, as you see those come back, or in the budget, that sort of thing. But is there anything else you would think of, Christian, of ways of how will the council expect to see this as an actionable plan?
Yeah, I think through, you know, once this is wrapped up, so Cameron will is intending to bring back a resolution in February. In March, April, we're going to jump into the tree regulation code update to make sure that it can implement these strategies, along with some of the policy items of right tree, right place, making sure that the future trees that Deputy Mayor Aldrich gets, she plants it in the right space, and it's not maybe twisting itself, and can thrive, as well as a heritage tree or a larger tree policy around those. So those have been on the work plan for a while. So right away we'll be jumping into the code update process for this. So trees will be at the forefront of our mind, and you know, annually it's always a great opportunity for us to identify, here's where we are 1 year out, or just under a year out next January or February, to report back. Here's what we've done. We wrapped up these, you know, ideally we've wrapped up the code updates, and we're starting to see X, Y, or Z, and identify what those priorities are. If, as City Manager mentioned, if that's a metric that we want to include in the dashboard, we can look to do that. How do we want to track it? What's the staff time look like to do so, to make sure that we're providing data for everyone to see, and within our general annual updates or our annual reports on development activity, I can see something to, you know, along the lines of tree retention, protection, plantings. What are we starting to see as we mold the strategies and codes from here on out?
I think this would be a definite dashboard item for myself, just to keep us accountable.
I think we have been, so study sessions, the ideal situation when we talked about it a few years ago, for your benefit, because you weren't in that room, it was supposed to be, because we had really good discussions. The challenge over here is that now you have cameras pointing at you. And everything you say can and will be used against you, with the chief, looking at the chief there. So I think we have to, so it's not the best, but any ideas? This is the forum for us to have a conversation and back and forth. It's in a more formal, semi-formal way. Unfortunately, that's how it ended up being. But yes, anything, if you want to have metrics for a specific thing, yes. And we are becoming a lot more data-driven than we were when I first started 4 years ago. We had the dashboard launched last year, I think it was. So that's a good, anything is better than, it's a way better start than we had before. So, but we always iterate and improve upon it. And I'm glad that we have another Councilmember Engelberg here to also push for that stuff, because it was I was doing it myself.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a study session. I was only hoping like even a 15-minute presentation. Okay, we met 10 homeowner associations. We met 100 residents or 10 residents. This just a 15-minute presentation, not a study session.
Perfect.
At all.
Yeah, understood. That's very helpful. Thank you for the clarification. And again, that'll help feed into things. Those are great staff report items to be able to share as things are going on, and we do try and bring that back. So again, I love the feedback. Clear is helpful, and you definitely, that makes sense.
I have one last strategy that came to me because I hadn't written anything down, but in talking with nonprofits who do a lot of planting in the city, one of the barriers that they have shared with me is that planting on city park land or open space requires for them and for their funding mechanisms archaeological plans or archaeological studies, which are expensive and have to be done sort of piecemeal instead of across the board for the entire park. Because when you plant a tree, you have to dig down a certain depth, and that disruption of the soil, if you're getting state funding, requires that you do due diligence and have an archaeological evaluation, just to make sure that you're not you're not disturbing anything. So I'm curious about the progress that's been made. I know that city parks have, and maybe this is a pros plan tie-in or a parks board nexus and conversation to have, but I'm wondering about how for tree planting purposes we can get out ahead of that and address some of the barriers ahead of potential partners coming in and doing some of the other lifts. I can foresee us making these strategies that we'll work with a whole bunch of partners and we'll rely on them to do a lot of work. And then there are barriers that they have that might be coming up later during implementation planning. So I want to recognize that we don't have all the answers, but archaeological studies is one, especially in parks, that I think we might be able to address.
That's a great suggestion. We'll huddle with our parks team, and when this comes back for action, include some information in the agenda bill.
Good point. I think you reminded me, I had a question earlier about how is parks involved in this whole plan, or are they?
Yeah, they've been heavily involved throughout the development of the plan, particularly because they have certified arborists on staff. They're regularly involved with tree maintenance, and so a lot of great input from them in terms of just things that they see and run into that fed into the plan.
Okay, cool. Because they're on the hook for keeping everything according to plan, right? So.
Well, when we talk about wanting to bring Shelton View Forest into the city's portfolio, that also is going to necessitate maintenance. And that's something that we need to reiterate to our community, and we also need to understand when we're looking to get funding, is that it's not just a one-time thing.
I'm glad that Councilmember Curd brought up archaeology studies and especially, and this might be a conversation for Thursday night with the Wayne Open House, but has there been a 89-acre wide archaeological study done that might relieve some of that burden on our planting partners, so that we know, not just the history of that place, but also what are risks and where are safe places to plant and all of that. Is that a conversation that has been part of the Wayne discussion?
We'll make sure that's part of what comes back when we bring it for. Yeah, so we'll huddle and get some facts on what's done, what's possible, and what's to come.
All right, last call for comments, thoughts. All right, we're adjourned.